I'm Willem for Solar Intelligence. I'm doing the next recording in our how-to series. You'll remember that we've got one videos, one following on the next, on how to put together your solar system. So if you're on a journey to design and install and get your mind around your own solar system, follow these videos logically one after the other. Today we're doing how to select your battery, which follows on after the previous one, which was how to select your inverter. So here in this video that we will be discussing the relationship between the battery and the inverter. So obviously you'll have to make your decision first on which inverter you're going to select, and then subsequent to that you'll have to select your battery. Again, just to talk about the system that we're installing or that we're targeting, we are targeting a hybrid system that has both storage and then energy generation from the solar panels. And it's a residential application, typical residential load profile with early morning loads, not much load during the day, and then again late afternoon loads. And we assume that is the standard load profile that we're designing a system for. And also the battery plays a pivotal role in your load profile. Again, the same process that we used with the inverter, we're going to talk about the minimum standard for the battery. We don't want to enter into the heated debates about which battery is better and which one is going to last longer. We work with facts, and the facts that we get from the warranty documents as well. But let's first define a minimum standard that we know what battery we're looking for. We discard lead acid batteries altogether. I suggest strongly that even if your budget is tight, do not consider lead acid batteries. Many people make many claims about the lead acid batteries going to last you 5 or more years. I have not had a lead acid battery that lasts that long, unless it is a very expensive flooded lead acid battery. And they can last longer, 8 years. As a matter of fact, my own solution are batteries that are already 8 years old, but those are really expensive flooded lead acid batteries that I need to top up all the time, make sure that the specific gravity is good, etc. Takes a lot of maintenance, it's dangerous work, but they're also quite expensive. So their price will be similar to lithium ion battery. So there's really no more space, my view, that there's no more space for lead acid batteries in the market. The capital cost to buy lead acid batteries might be a little bit lower, but the battery is not going to last you more than, if you're lucky, 2 years. And then you have to replace the battery. So the lead acid battery is not a good investment. Your lithium ion batteries are definitely a better investment. Then let's talk lithium ion batteries. There are two technologies for lithium batteries. There's the lithium ion batteries and the titanates. People call it supercaps, LTOs, lithium titanate batteries. There are maybe 1 or 2 manufacturers that are already bringing them into the market, but they're a lot more expensive. Yes, you get a lot more cycles, probably up to about 50,000 cycles out of them. I don't think I'm going to live long enough to exhaust the cycles of a titanate battery. Also, they're quite expensive. So maybe for commercial applications, the LTOs are a better investment than the lithium ion, the LPO or LFOs. But you'll have to make the decision. I think for a residential installation, the lithium ion batteries, the LAFE, lithium phosphate batteries, they are the better choice, and also a lot more cost effective. Then with regards to the battery specification, we're talking about depth of discharge and cycles. Again, depth of discharge is how flat and how much energy from this battery you can extract. Now again, to put the two in context, or in contrast, a lead acid battery to a lithium ion battery, typically lead acid batteries, you will not discharge to lower than 50%. So you can only use half of the capacity of the battery. So if you've got a battery that has maybe 10 kilowatt hours of capacity, total capacity, only half of that is usable. Otherwise, you seriously impact the cycles that you'll get out of the battery. Now, what are cycles? Cycles is every charge and discharge from full to the maximum discharge point and full again. That is one cycle. So if you have a 10% discharge and a 10% discharge again, multiple, we call it micro cycles or micro discharges, add up to one cycle. So if you've got 10% discharges or cycles, then that adds up to one cycle. And that's typically the calculation for one cycle. So just to come back to the conversation, with a lead acid battery, you'll only use 50% or half of the capacity of the battery to make it usable energy. With lithium ion batteries, it's typically 80%. Some manufacturers claim 90%, some claim even 100%. Yes, you can discharge a lithium ion battery to 100%. And it can recover after that. But again, that has an impact on the battery. And in the manual, in the manufacturer's warranty documents, they will specify that in the lifetime of the battery, there should not be more than X amount of cycles. We've taken the battery beyond the 80 or the 90% as per the manufacturer's manuals, the warranties. And again, paper can say a lot of things, and it might not be the truth. So don't just read in the brochure what the brochure says. The brochure might say unlimited cycles and 100% depth of discharge. But if you read the warranty, what does the warranty say? That's obviously the document that if something happens in 7 or 8 years' time and you want to submit a claim, you'll have to refer to what the warranty says. The brochure is not going to stand its ground when it comes to some unpleasant conversations about your battery's warranty. So make sure that in the warranty it must specify what is the maximum depth of discharge, and at that depth of discharge, how many cycles will you get at that depth of discharge? Some manufacturers will say at 80% depth of discharge you will get maybe 4,500 cycles. At 70% you'll get 6,000. At 60, you get it? So the fewer or the lower the depth of discharge, the more cycles you'll get. So the battery can absolutely give you a longer life. So make sure that the depth of discharge and the cycles is written into the warranty documents. And we're talking about the minimum standard for your battery. Another minimum standard is BMS communication, the BMS, the battery management system communication. If you watch the previous video on selecting your inverter, I discussed there the importance of getting the battery to communicate with the inverter so that the battery can control the inverter. The BMS is a little computer, battery management system, a little computer inside the battery that needs to tell the inverter what it wants. I want so many volts, I want so many amps, don't discharge more than that, don't charge more than that, stop discharging now, etc. That's all communication that happens between the battery and the inverter. So if you have no communication between the battery and the inverter, we call that a dumb setup, a dumb battery. Then there's no communication, then that intelligence goes missing, and obviously that is going to have an impact on the life of your battery. So as a standard, we insist that the combination between inverter and battery must be compatible so that there can be communication between the two for reasons I just explained. Then let's talk about the battery storage capacity. We're going to get a bit technical now, so please bear with me. And also we put some documents in our description just to talk about the difference between kilowatts and kilowatt hours. In the previous video, we also discussed the power rating of all the appliances in your house. Now let's separate power from energy. Remember the little truck analogy that I used? For the truck to go up the hill, the truck needs to have an engine. That is the power. It needs so much power to go up the hill. The question is, how big does the tank need to be? See, the tank and the fuel, it's not about the power, it's about the energy. The energy is how much energy is stored in the tank. That'll tell you how long or how far the truck can go. The same analogy now with your inverter. The inverter size does not tell you anything about the battery. The amount of energy that you store in the battery, that energy enables the inverter to do the work. So we need to understand not the power rating, and in other words, not all the weight of all the items on the back of the truck, but the power rating of all the items that are on at the same time, concurrently on at the same time. How much energy are they using? Not what their power rating is, but how much energy they are using, right? So what is energy? Energy is power times time. Now remember, we measure energy in kilowatts or in watts. So let's use, for example, this bright light that I'm looking at. That light might be a 50-watt light. That is the power rating. The size of the engine is 50 watts. But that's not energy. That's just how much power it's using. Well, if this 50 watts is on for an hour, well, it's 50 watts times an hour. So it's 50 watt hours. That's how much energy it's using. You get it? So let's talk about a geyser, all right? So the geyser draws typically 3 kilowatts, which is 3,000 watts. So let's say the geyser draws 3 kilowatts. 3 kilowatts on for 1 hour. So let's say it takes 1.5 hours for the water to heat up. So it's 1.5 times 3 kilowatts. So 3 times 1.5 is 4.5. So that's 4.5 kilowatt hours. So the minute there's an H in the unit, kilowatt hours, amp hours, the minute there's an H in it, it means a function of time, and that is energy. All right, so back to your house. What does that mean? You need to make a list, and you'll see an example in the description below of a table of all the items in your house. You've got to list them from your lights, TV, fridge, kettle, microwave, every one of those in the house, and put the power rating next to it, and use the example that we've got in the description of typical power ratings. Yes, that's not accurate that all are the same, but at least it's a guideline to work with. All right, so make a list of all the items that you deem to be essential items that you are going to be using, that will work from the battery system, and then how long they are going to be on. So let's say you're planning for a 4-hour load shedding session. In that 4-hour load shedding session, how many times are you going to boil the kettle? How many minutes are you going to run the microwave? So let's use the microwave as an example. Let's say, just for simplicity's sake, the microwave uses 2 kilowatts of power. The microwave, even though it uses 2 kilowatts, that kilowatts doesn't say much about the battery. It says something about the inverter. It says about the inverter must be able to supply 2 kilowatts. That's the size of the engine. But then how big must the fuel tank be? Well, to run 2 kilowatts for, let's say you're going to use the microwave for 15 minutes. That's a quarter of an hour. So it's a quarter times 2 kilowatts. Well, that's 500 watt hours. You get it? So it's time times the power rating will give you the energy. Let's talk about a kettle. So the kettle is 2 kilowatts. Typically, most kettles will run about 2 kilowatts. Same story. So the kettle's on only for 5 minutes. So it's 1 hour. So it's 5 over 60 the minute. So it's 5 over 60. That's the fraction of an hour that the kettle is on, times 2 kilowatts. So 5 over 60 is 1/12 of 2 kilowatts. You do the math and you add all those items up, and that will give you a sum or total in kilowatt hours or watt hours. That will tell you what is the usable capacity that you need from your battery. You get it? So I just want to spend a bit of time on the fridge and the duty cycle of a fridge. So typically, you know that let's say the fridge uses around about 200 watts, depending on the A rating. And I suggest when you buy your new appliances, make sure that they've got an energy efficiency rating, a good energy efficiency rating, or an A rating, a favorable A rating. That means it's a device that is energy efficient. Now, as you know about a fridge, you often hear it, the motor starting and the motor stopping and the motor starting and the motor stopping. That is called the duty cycle. So the duty cycle is what fraction of any time period is that item running. So with the fridge, we typically work on between a 30 and a 50%, depending on how new and how smart your fridge is, of a duty cycle. So if the fridge uses 200 watts for an hour, let's make 5 hours to make it simple. So if the fridge is working for 5 hours, you want to have backup power for 5 hours. So it's 5 hours times 200 watts. That's 1 kilowatt hour. But remember, it's not running all the time. It's not running for the entire 5 hours. It's only running, let's say, 50%, half of the time, because the motor switches on and off. So it's 50% times the power times the time to get you the energy for the fridge. So your homework will be to make a list of all the items that you want to power in your house. Put down or write down, maybe use Excel as a method to help you doing the mathematics or the maths. List all the items, put in the power rating, the amount of minutes that they are on, and work out then how much energy every one of those items will be using. Add up the energy, and that tells you the usable capacity. Remember the usable capacity, I'll get to that just now, that the battery must be able to offer you. Right, when you have that sum, how big, is it good to go bigger than that? And yes, bigger is better. Obviously, there's a huge budget impact because batteries are expensive. So bigger is better. If you want to realize more savings, and the load profile of a typical residential from typical house is big consumption early morning, big consumption late afternoon. That cannot come from the sun. That must come from preferably the battery. So if you could charge the battery with cheap energy from the sun, well, then you can use the cheap energy from the sun that's stored in the battery to supply the loads early morning, late afternoon. But that means you're going to have a lot of solar panels and a big battery. That might not be the situation from day one, but over time you might add more panels, add more battery, add more panels, add more battery. So bigger battery is better. So if you just want a starting point that can just get to 4 hours of load shedding or whatever your minimum requirement is, well then list all those items as I explained just now. But just keep in the back of your mind, leave space and leave capacity that in the future you can add more solar panels and you can add more batteries. All right, that's enough about that. Right, the second part of a battery's requirement goes about the power delivery capability. Now this gets technical, so pay attention. We spoke about the capacity of the battery just now, the usable capacity of the battery. That's the amount of energy that it can store. Yes, that's a requirement. That's how many liters of fuel I need to have in the tank, how many kilowatt hours of energy I must store in the battery. The next is, how much power can this battery deliver? Okay, so the analogy is with a fuel truck going up the hill, the engine needs a certain amount of fuel. If there is fuel in the fuel tank, the fuel needs to get quick enough from the tank to the engine to keep the engine going. So if the fuel line is too small, there's a risk that the engine will starve, there's not enough fuel and the engine will shut down. The same analogy then with your battery. The battery needs to be able to supply the energy at a quick enough rate to keep the inverter going. That is the C rating of a battery. So I'm not sure if you've heard about it. There's a 1C rating or a half a C rating or a 2C rating. What that basically means is the power rating, the power capability of the battery. So if it is a 1C rating, it means that if it's a 5 kilowatt hour battery, remember 5 kilowatt hour, that's energy. It can deliver 5 kilowatt of power. You get it? 5 kilowatt hour, the capacity, can deliver 5 kilowatt the power. So that's a 1C battery. I beg your pardon. If it's a 2C battery, a 2C battery can deliver double the capacity of the battery. So if you've got a 5 kilowatt hour battery, well, it can deliver 10 kilowatts of power. The opposite is also true, and this is where you need to pay really good attention. A half C battery can only deliver half of its capacity in power. If it's a 5 kilowatt battery rated at the half C, it means it can only deliver 2.5 kilowatts of power. Now, you must really just pay attention, look at some of the adverts, and I've seen many adverts on Facebook where the suppliers or even installers suggest a 3 kilowatt hour battery on a 5 kilowatt inverter. That is a really bad match. If the inverter draws more than the capacity of the battery, which is 3 kilowatts, then the battery will shut down before the inverter can actually supply the load. So be very careful. So the rule of thumb that we are using is that the battery must at least be the same capacity, power delivering capacity or capability, as what the inverter's capacity is. So a 5 kilowatt inverter needs to be able to get 5 kilowatts from the battery. So the battery must be able to deliver 5 kilowatts. So make sure when you look at the battery, is the 1C battery, can the battery deliver the amount, enough amps to keep the inverter going? Amps. That's another discussion for another day. But the power delivering capability of the battery needs to match that of the requirement of the inverter. We've often heard debates where the installer will say, yeah, but with the loads in the house, even though it's a 5 kilowatt inverter, the loads in the house will only be 3 kilowatts. Be careful. Remember inductive loads. So if you have any motor starting up, even your fridge is a motor starting up, a pool pump or a borehole pump or an air conditioner, anything with a motor running, that's an inductive load. It has an inrush current or a large startup current up to 4 times, 5 times the capacity of the motor. So if you've got a pool pump, which is, let's say, 1 kilowatt, that pool pump can go up to 5 kilowatts just to get going. That inrush current is quite a bit. The battery needs to supply that. Well, the inverter needs to supply that. The inverter is going to say to the battery, I need this energy, but also I want it at this rate, please. I want to get 5 kilowatts from your battery. And if the battery doesn't have that capacity, the battery will shut down. One will think that this inverter failing, but often it's not the inverter failing, it's the battery dipping, and the battery can't supply that power. So pay attention, please, to the C rating of your battery. All right, and again, now we're going to talk about brand. Which battery are you going to select? We are the same as with the inverters. We avoid getting into the heated debates as to which is better and what brand is better than the other. We just work with facts. So what I suggest is go back to the previous slides that we discussed on the minimum standard that we need from our battery. So just work with facts. See what the warranty says and use that fact. There are too many battery brands, too many to mention. I want to add some considerations that I think maybe just think about a little bit. What about battery claims? So if this battery has a 10-year warranty, so think about the manufacturer of the battery. Will the manufacturer still be here 10 years from now? So if it's an unknown supplier of manufacturer in China, and he gives you a 10-year or he promises a 10-year guarantee or warranty on the battery, are they still going to be around 10 years from now? Give that some thought. And then growing your battery system over time, maybe just give some thought as well to how much space you have available. Some of the batteries can stack on top of one another. So the battery's footprint might be, let's say, 0.5 meter by 0.5 meter. That's the footprint of the battery, and they can stack on top of one another. So some make a tower of up to 4 batteries. So if it's 4 batteries, how high will they stand? Is there enough space above the battery? So if it's below a shelf or below a cupboard, then obviously there's not enough space to stack the batteries on top of one another. Some batteries mount against a wall. So if you've got multiple units against the wall, you're going to need quite a bit of wall space. So just give some thought to the future as to where you will grow and where the batteries will then stand. Talking about multiple units, and I bet you I'm going to give a different, well, I must tell you, I'll give you a different answer now to what I would have done maybe 2 or 3 years ago. The question the question to answer, one large battery versus multiple small units. It's definitely more efficient, unquestionably more efficient, to have one large battery rather than multiple smaller units. You see on Facebook installations where there are 8, 9, 10, 20, 30 batteries, smaller units, the 5 kilowatt hour units paralleling one after the other one. Every connection there are losses. So if you have a connection from one battery to the next battery to the next battery, at every one of those connections, there is a little bit of voltage loss, a little bit of losses that is incurred from those points. And there's cable length from the one battery to the next to the next. So obviously the longer the cable, the more the losses. So it's not a great idea to have multiple small units. Why I'm second guessing myself, saying my answer is different now to what it was in the past, is what if one unit fails? So if you have only one battery and that battery fails, which they do, even the batteries with a good warranty, but they will, the warranties, if the warranty is worth the paper it's written on, then the warranty will be on it. But if the battery fails, well, then you're sitting without a system. So if you have multiple units, let's say 2 or 3 batteries, then if one unit fails, yes, you're going to be limp along with less energy than what you used to, but at least you can still use your system. So my answer is 2, 3, let's say 4 units. I would suggest not go more than 4 units. If it becomes too many after that, as I explained, cable lengths and space and losses. Keep that in the back of your mind as a consideration. Right, if you found this video helpful, like always, you know what to do with the thumbs and the bells and the subscriptions. So if you want to be notified when this video comes out, please subscribe and click the notifications button so that you can be advised when we do our next video. See ya!
We love the earth.